Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. We're here to break down all the roster cuts, the practice squad acquisitions, and the trades that happened over the last couple days for your Minnesota Vikings. So grab a beer and join us for a great show.
Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings. Skol!
Perfect. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am your host, Matt Anderson, and like every week here on the show, it is sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing in St. Paul, Minnesota. I have my own Purple Rain here, one of their beers on tap right now. You can head over in St. Paul and pick one up, but like every other week as well, joined by my co-host Ryan and producer Dave. Ryan, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great. Having a cold beer after a first victory of the season for my son's football team. So,
well, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah, it was a nice little victory. A little 7-6 win. It was a little low scoring today, but that's all right.
Mike Zimmer would be proud.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Dave, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. It's been a crazy weekend through today. Absolutely busy. Things going wild, tracking everybody in and out, and it's been hellaciously fun.
And that's good though.
Mm-hmm.
We sit dormant for so long in the off season that it's time to get a little chaotic, and that's exactly what the Vikings did yesterday, in my opinion. I think we sat here a week ago, and I'm probably on record saying like, oh, this is the easiest kind of roster decisions they have. Everything I think seems pretty clear cut, status quo, whatever. Let's roll into it. And I think there were a lot of surprises from us in the last couple of days. And we can start off, I guess, with the most recent news here, and I'll toss it over to you here, Ryan. But the Vikings today traded for, and there's so many different ways you could set this up, but they traded for Jalen Reagor, who is infamously known as the receiver the Eagles took right before the Vikings, before they snagged Justin Jefferson. So, what are your thoughts on that move? And by the way, to make room for Jalen Reagor, the Vikings waived Ihmir Smith-Marsette.
Yeah, I don't think that the move itself was all that. I don't know if surprising is the right word. Now, I thought that there was chatter about us trying to get out in the market for a more veteran receiver after B.C. Johnson went down. I actually just read something that we actually were in on Denzel Mims. We called the Jets on Mims. They wanted a fourth. We said no, and decided to move on to other options here. So that alone isn't all that surprising. Now, when you take a look at Ihmir Smith-Marsette being cut to make room, now that kind of baffles me. Not to say Ihmir Smith-Marsette is some untouchable guy. I think he has quite a bit of talent. I think that he has a lot of skill, and I think he is a locker room favorite. It seems like there was, a lot of chatter about how he was a good guy in the receiver room that, brought a lot of energy, brought a lot of spunk to that group, along with Justin Jefferson and so on. So to see him get waived in this move is a bit surprising. One, because we had a younger receiver that's even less proven than Smith-Marsette in Naylor on roster that you probably could have done that to. Or we have like three backup tackles, right? Like we have Oli Udoh, who I know he's guard, tackle eligible, whatever. You got that Lowe, that rookie tackle, and then we have Blake Brandel. So probably a overabundance of talent at that specific position on the depth of that line that I thought we probably could have snuck low onto the practice squad, or Udo, because it's not like he's shown to be some great player, onto the practice squad. So it was a little surprising, but again, I am excited about the Reagor move itself. Um, Ihmir Smith-Marsette did struggle a bit. When he caught the ball and had a clean catch and wasn't overthinking it, he made some good plays on punt and return in preseason. But too often he was trying to make over shoulder catches, dropping the football, making decisions just a bit too late, and it wasn't shown to be, I guess, kind of a model of consistency at that position, I guess I should say. He had some highs, he had some lows. So Reagor comes in with the ability to play a punt return. He actually has a punt return for touchdown his rookie year, a couple of years ago. So I think that stability at that position would be good. And honestly, he's probably a better wide receiver four.
Yeah.
Not to say Ihmir Smith-Marsette couldn't ascend to a higher caliber player eventually, but today and probably for the next year or two, Reagor's probably the better player. So I think our team got better today with that move.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because you watch college football a lot more than I do. So I'm making the assumption here that you have a little bit of an analysis on who Jalen Reagor is as a player. He was taken in the first round. He was arguably a reach at that point, I think, just given the fact that Justin Jefferson was still on the board, maybe.
Sure.
But
he was a first round talent. He was a late first round guy. Yes, I mean, hindsight 2020, obviously Jefferson's the pick, right? But a lot of people at the time thought maybe Justin Jefferson was a slot only receiver, right? Reagor had the inside out ability that he's shown in college. Again, a lot of I think it was not necessarily poor scouting on Reagor. I think it was poor scouting on Jefferson by a lot of teams because he had shown in college early in his career that he could play outside too. So it was that was always just very interesting. No, I had Justin Jefferson over Reagor on my rankings back then. But yes, to your point, I did watch Reagor quite a bit. He played in the Big 12, so I actually got to watch him against him. Yeah, I got to watch him against my Sooners a lot, right? So, and what got to do it, right? What I remember from him was that he was a spark plug. Like, getting him the ball with a little bit of space, and he's going to make something happen. So, was he this refined route runner? Was he this, jump ball type receiver? No, but you get him the ball in space, and he can make something happen. It was actually I had him very similarly comped that same year with Brandon Ayuk, where same kind of player. You just give him the ball, and he's going to make something happen, but he wasn't a refined receiver. And to this point, I think Ayuk's ascended more, which I had him ranked higher than Reagor too, than Reagor has. But Reagor also hasn't been put in necessarily the best situation, in my opinion, with that offense. Nothing against Jalen Hurts, or nothing against Carson Wentz, or nothing against Nick Sirianni. But it's just, he only got, I think, 55 targets last year, 33 receptions. That's not a lot of volume for a guy who's probably, and I think they were playing him a lot in the slot. I think he's probably a bit more outside receiver. So we'll see. We'll see if O'Connell and McCardell can really take this clay and mold it into something pretty good.
Yeah, I think the general reaction after the news today was like, ha ha ha, like, I can't believe we're trading for Jalen Reagor. But I feel like most fans are okay with it. Dave, are you on a similar bandwagon? Do you feel like happy with the trade today? I mean, the draft compensation is a 7th and a conditional 4th. So I don't know if we
5th and that could go up to a 4th. I have no problem with Reagor. He solves our punt return woes, so that's not a big deal. I didn't like the releasing of ISM. And Lauren, you said, or Aaron, one of the two, you said that ISM was reported as a locker room and dissed JJ and Booth. If you're referring to the tweet by a Mr. Leach, who works for The Athlete, I got I got caught on that one too. That is a troll account. It is 100% fake. There is nothing that indicates that ISM was a bad locker room presence. And ISM, when you look at, people are saying he's better than Reagor. That's yet to be determined. But when you look at yards per catch, he did do better in his limited games last year, 5 or 6 games, than Reagor has over his 2 years. So if you're just looking at the stats of it, yes, he did better. And we know Kirk Cousins liked throwing to him. That's why it was a surprise to me, because we could have easily gone to 6 wide receivers. I figured we'd carry 6 wide receivers, and they would have gotten rid of, as Brian so smartly said, Oli Udo or Vidarian Lowe, or you could have gone with one of the other rookies that made it, Luigi Velin, right? Somebody like that could have been easily released and then made the practice squad in his place, and then we would have had 6 wide receivers, right? Mm-hmm. And if we ever have one of the top 2 or 3 go down, then you can platoon in the other guys, right? Whether it be ISM, whether it be Reagor, or Naylor, and get them stuff. That's what baffled me, is that they got rid of ISM. Not that Reagor, I think picking up Reagor is a good deal. I like the fact that he's going to be in a brand new environment. I think Philadelphia got in his head. He was constantly compared to, you could have had Justin Jefferson, but you didn't. So, and he's constantly compared to him. Well, he now comes to the team with Justin Jefferson on it, and he's obviously going to see Justin every single day. But I think it's going to be in a more embracing, loving type of atmosphere with an outstanding wide receiver coach and an offensive-minded coach that's going to help foster the best of Jalen Reagor. And I think that's a good thing for the Vikings.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I read something today, too, like a beat reporter, whoever it might have been, for the Eagles.
I was going to ask you to bring this up.
Yeah, he had mentioned that Reagor is coming off the best offseason he's seen of him since he's been drafted. And it just seems like he's in a better place mentally, which, again, these football players, man, like, you have to be in a good space mentally. Otherwise, you know, when you're just getting popped and you're in your head constantly and you're dropping balls and stuff, I mean, it's easy to get caught up in that, right? So if you're in the right headspace and then now you're into a brand new environment, hopefully the fans will embrace him and give him the, you know, proper warm welcome that we typically do for, you know, players. Hopefully that'll foster a great, you know, better headspace for him going forward.
Yeah, it's a clean slate now. So it's hopefully there's no weird vibes between him and Jefferson, and if they are, hopefully they're squashed relatively early, because Jefferson's not going away, so not anytime soon. We got a lot
somebody I just quick asked if we think ISM will make it the practice squad. I hope. I mean, obviously the word is we want to bring him back to the practice squad, is what we're hearing. But the difference is he's actually a talented young receiver. I mean, 22, 23 years old. So, like, he's likely going to be a commodity out there. Somebody's probably going to put in a claim for him, but hopefully not. I mean, there are a lot. The thing about receivers is there's so many quality ones out there and ones with a lot of potential out and just in the league in general, that sometimes these guys can squeak through. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah. Watch Green Bay put in a claim for him.
Oh, yeah.
That would hurt.
And he'll become Aaron Rodgers' new love child.
They got some good receivers with potential over there, so we'll see. But that was just one aspect of the last 2 days. This recent trade. There was another trade for a defensive tackle. We also traded away offensive lineman Chris Reed after giving him a decent chunk of change this offseason. But
Jesse Davis.
Jesse Davis. I'm sorry. That's a brain fart on my part. Jesse Davis we traded away. But there's a lot of other surprising moves, I would say. I think the next one we could maybe talk about is I think Brian in the comments here brought him up. Armon Watts is gone. And I think a lot of fans that was the first like shocking one, right? To hear that he was just waived and then picked up by the Bears. I've seen things out there that maybe he's not fit for a 3-4, and the 4-3 is probably just a little bit better for him, and he'll get that over in Chicago. But what are your takeaways there, Ryan, with the releasing or waiving, I guess, of Armon Watts?
I mean, I don't really feel one way or another about it. I obviously liked him. I thought he was becoming a better player each and every year. I think last year he played quite well, actually. But at the same time, he's probably our worst defensive starter, maybe our second worst defensive starter. So like, it's not like we're losing this key cog in a defensive line or on the defense in general that's going to make or break the season, right? And we replace him with a guy that's a very similar skill set than him, who I think is younger and is cheaper. So I don't, at least as of last year, Ross Blacklock was not as good as Armon Watts was in the 2021 season. But he also played on a very poor defense with not a lot of help around him. He was actually supposed to be the guy on that defensive line. Now he, again, kind of like Andrew Wiggins, right? We talked about how Wiggins was supposed to be the superstar player on our team. He goes to the Golden State Warriors. Now he actually is thriving in that 3/4 player role, and he's playing really, really well, right? Hopefully we'll see that out of Ross here, where he was a second-round pick out of TCU. He's actually teammates with Jalen Reagor. Picked in the second round. I thought he probably even maybe could have went first round, like late first in that draft. Tons of potential. He's a get off the ball player. He's going to go and penetrate the pocket. He's going to make things happen, make things uncomfortable for that defense. Where he struggles is in the run game. So in a 3-4, you can mask that just a bit. I think based on kind of what I know about the 3-4. But in a 4-3, he's off the field anyway, right? So in those like true rundown scenarios, he's likely going to be off the field if we're playing like the nickel, I guess. So that's not a rundown, but he's going to be the first defensive lineman off the field. So he's probably not going to get as many snaps as you would have thought he would. But when he's in there, he's going to be able to penetrate that pocket. Hopefully they don't just rush right at him. Otherwise, we're going to need to give him a lot of help. But hopefully Harrison Phillips will be able to mask some of that too.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if you noticed, though, they have Bullard as the starter right now
and that
on
would
the
make
official
sense
Vikings depth chart. I suspect both of those guys will platoon in. Blacklock is good at pass rushing. Bullard's better against the run. So when we see the run, we may see Bullard in there. If we get into a pass rushing situation where they want to keep the 3-4 defense going, they may slide Blacklock in there, at least until he gets fully up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, his bread and butter is going to be that pass rush. So hopefully we can get him into some of those passing situations. But this team, I think, is going to be a lot of rotations. It's going to be a lot of rotations, both at the cornerback spot and on the defensive line. The only thing you probably won't see rotated a ton are these linebackers. So
yeah. Well, speaking of linebackers, I guess that would maybe be another relatively shocking release is Blake Lynch over there at the linebacker position. I think speaking volumes to the emergence of your guy, Brian Asamoah, just completely crushing his training camp. I think Score North crowned him Mr. Mankato of this season. So, yeah, I mean, that's incredible for me. And we'll get to this later in the show, but I think when we start to look at Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell's draft class this year, at least through the first 4-5 picks, like they have appeared to have really knocked it out of the park. And when we sit here at, August 31st, not even a year later after, Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman were here, 7 of the 11 draft picks that they had in that 2021 class are gone. Like, I do think I saw Janarius Robinson was signed back to the practice squad. So I guess technically you could have 6 gone, but 7 of the 11 are completely like off this roster, including one Kellen Mond, which we talked about last week on this show. We'd be kind of surprised if they outright cut him, just given the fact that now they have nobody on the practice squad, and they're really just trusting Nick Mullins to back up Kirk Cousins. So I think fans are breathing a sigh of relief to know that Sean Mannion's no longer on the team. Kellen Mond was truly not who any of us thought he was going to be. He just inconsistent. And that last preseason game was really bad. Actually, all of his preseason games really were not that fantastic. But what are your takeaways on the quarterback position? I guess it's Kirk and Nick Mullins, and no other quarterbacks as we do this podcast.
Yeah, as of today. I mean, here's the thing: is we had tape on Mond from last year, and I'm sure there's content for the coaches to digest through those practices that are in the archives or whatever. And then we have all of this preseason that to evaluate what he was and what we wanted him to be. The coach, again, I'm going to trust O'Connell because when Zimmer made these comments and Zimmer made these decisions, there was a slight hesitancy from everyone because Zimmer's a defensive guy. Maybe he's just being a little too rough on the kid and whatnot. But when Kevin O'Connell's throwing in the towel on him, who is a QB guy, like that's it, that's right. How he came up. Then you probably know something's up. Now he got picked up by Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski maybe thinks he can do something with him, and can maybe being mentored by Deshaun Watson, hopefully only on the field. And you take a look at, what's out there in the market. There's not a ton. I sent a joke that I wouldn't even hate the idea, but I sent a joke out to Tyler today that, hey, maybe we bring his boy Carson Strong on, just because he's 22 years old. Yeah, he's 22 years old. Throw him on the practice squad, let him develop and learn, and no harm, no foul if he doesn't turn out to be anything. Who cares? But, outside of that, you have Matt Barkley, you have I think both Cooper Rush and Will Grier got signed to the Cowboys practice squad. So, there's just not a lot out there. What's David Blau, Hard Knocks fame. He's out there, I think, available. Maybe you pick him up for that kind of I kind of like him. I think he brings this kind of hard-nosed mentality to the position, little Matt Stafford light, meaning doesn't have the skill set, but has that mentality of like tough nose kind of player. So, there's not a lot out there, but I'm fully, as I said last week, I'm fully on board with Nick Mullins. I think that he provides a lot of experience for a backup quarterback. Think that let me rephrase from last week. I think I said he's like a top 5 backup. That's not true. He's probably a top 50 quarterback in the league though. So maybe on the just outside the top half of the backups. Yeah, top half of the backups. Like I don't think he's in the top half, but like just outside of that. And there's even some backups in the league that I take over him just because of their youth and their abilities that that the potential that they have. But so I'm not mad. And then of course Kirk's the Iron Man, right? Like he doesn't get hurt, he doesn't falter. He had COVID. Yeah. The only time he's ever missed a game is because of COVID. So I think he's just fine. We're just fine to rock with the 2 quarterbacks. And again, let's bring in just a super developmental guy like Carson Strong, or somebody like that to come in and fill that practice squad spot.
Dave, are you happy Kellen Mond and Sean Mannion are gone?
Very. Really, I thought Kellen Mond didn't have. The highest he could ever get was possibly a backup, and not a good quality backup by what he's demonstrated. Sean Mannion is Sean Mannion. He'll drive you crazy. Great at holding the clipboard, but that's about it. He won't win you any games. So,
he did get some praise, unless I got spammed by a fake account. But I thought I saw.
Well, I didn't think KOC praised him, but then cut him like the next day. So, no, I'm quite happy. Now, do I believe that we'll find a third quarterback to throw on the practice squad? Probably. Will we do it soon? Maybe not. They may wait to see how the season starts to play out. Didn't I see Josh Rosen was cut and he's a free agent?
Yep.
I mean, he's not great, but he's not horrible.
Yeah. I mean, he's been jumped by so many teams, but again, yeah, like, why not, right? I mean, yeah, there's like Tim Boyle, who didn't play well for Detroit, AJ McCarron.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's worth a practice squad spot, right? Yeah, Josh Rosen. It's just not a ton out there, though. I was taking a look at this before the show, and I'm like, gosh, there really isn't much out there. You know, Ben DiNucci, I don't think he was brought back. Why not bring him in? Something like that. But you know, there's just not a lot of value out there, which is fine. It just means that we're gonna have to go back to the well at some point in the draft next year, which supposedly is supposed to be a better. Actually, in all honesty, this year would have been a good draft to go into the well. In terms of, there's a lot of guys that had talent that just fell because they just weren't high end talent, but like premium or a solid backup talent that maybe could go into a starter. I mean, you take a look at some of the other guys that were taken third round or later this year. Malik Willis, Sam Howell is having a good camp, and he's going to maybe push for a spot at some point.
Kenny Pickett may start.
Yeah, well, he's first round pick, but yeah, I mean, absolutely, Kenny Pickett's going to be up there. And then like Skylar Thompson, which he played at K-State. I swear I watched a game and he threw 3 passes maybe. So he comes out to the NFL and he's throwing dimes. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I was very surprised when I saw he was doing well for Miami. So like there was some talent out there. Even like Matt Corral might have been something if he didn't get that Liz Frank injury. And again, all these guys went third round or later.
Yeah,
Desmond Ridder. I forgot Desmond Ridder. He might take that spot in Atlanta here by the end of the year.
Yeah. I think that a practice squad quarterback is likely to be added here pretty soon. But I mean, like Ryan said, it's slim pickings at this point, which is the case for why last week we said maybe don't cut Kellen Mond, maybe just roll with 3 quarterbacks, because you kind of always want to have that developmental quarterback on your team in some fashion. But Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback. I don't want to coin him the cornerback whisperer by any means. I'm kind of getting warm in my basement. My glasses are starting to fog up.
But he was a quarterback, so you expect him to be able to communicate well to his quarterbacks.
And I think he can see what he has in those types of players. So for him to move on from Kellen Mond, I think we have every reason to trust him at this point until that is taken away from us. So before we move on to our next topic, I want to just give a huge shout out to the viewers here tonight. You guys are lighting up the chat. We love it. I've seen some people from Texas, from Illinois. So here's my shameless plug. I'll do it at the end of the show too. But if you haven't yet and you're here for the first time, go over to our YouTube channel, click like, click subscribe. You'll get notifications when we go live, which for this show is every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central. So go do that. Our goal is 4,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We went up again last week too, so maybe we can get to 2,000 before the season kicks off on September 11th. I've seen a couple comments in there. Dave, you just pointed to one.
Right. John ask who's going to play scout QB during game prep. That's a great question.
That's a valid question. I guess at this point in time, I'm not going to be too concerned about it. I want to see how the rest of the week kind of plays out, because I don't think the Vikings are quite done yet. I think there was like kind of a second round of cuts today, given all the new movement. So I think if we can just let this week simmer and reevaluate in a week, then I think we can go from there.
There you go, Aaron.
I was just about that. Who Kevin O'Connell could get back there and play scout QB. So
and Mr. Kirk Cousins put out a good comment there with McSorley, because that's right. You know, when we do have to go against an athletic guy, which we played Kyler, for example, this year, wasn't McSorley his backup this year, or like he was on their team in Arizona. So like he probably even knows the playbook. Like that would be a good person to bring in for those athletic quarterbacks that we do have to play year in and year out.
Yeah.
Great.
Another question that's in there, Michael, with a lot of exclamation points here, wants us to address the center issue. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I do think it's worthy of a conversation, right? I think when the inactive list came out for like the second preseason game and Garrett Bradbury was inactive, I think that told us everything, right? Like this coaching staff is going to trust Garrett Bradbury to man the middle of that offensive line until they really have no option to pull him, or if Schlottman somehow like surpasses him. Or Chris Reed, yes. Somebody behind Bradbury surpasses him. But there were some interesting names that got cut still yesterday, and I think Ryan, you were one of the people in the Climb in the Pocket chat mentioning Alec Lindstrom from the Cowboys.
Again, not somebody I was like excited about. I didn't like him in the draft process. I thought he was actually very similar to Bradbury, to be honest, in terms of, pretty good run blocker, but in passing situations, a little light and got bullied around at Boston College. I think he was Boston College. But yeah, I mean, again, another guy that why wouldn't you bring him in to compete and see if you can develop him into something more than what he has been. There's not going to be a lot out there. People are clamoring for Treader. He's retired. He's done. You have that Matt Paradis guy. I don't know how much he got left in the tank. Carolina went out and got a different center and let him go. Like, they didn't have a great offensive line. It's not like they were one center away from being this great team, right? So that, I think, says what you need to know about Paradis, and maybe at this point in his career. Trade market's your best route, but like, who's going to give up a premium center? Even if you go get a top end backup, like for example, Luke Braun on the show the other week had mentioned the idea of bringing in Lloyd Cushenberry from the Broncos, because Luke Wattenberg from Washington came in as a rookie and I think beat him out. Well, again, yeah, that's a good idea, but like, I don't know how much better Cushenberry is than Bradbury. Like, they're probably quite similar. So it's like, how much value add is that going to be? He's younger, so you might be able to develop him still. He maybe hasn't hit his peak like Bradbury probably has at this point in his career. But, and I'd be excited for the move. I'm just ready to move on. But there's just not a lot of options. So I think you just got to bite the bullet here and go into next offseason knowing, hey, we got to address this position. Because it looks like the rest of the line is set for the foreseeable future. Like, Ed Ingram's young. Ezra Cleveland's got 2 years left. No, 1 year after this year left. You got the bookends locked in for a while here. So there's only one position to fill. And, we're feeling pretty good about that, I
think. The days blend together, and I can't remember if this was after our show last week or right before, and we just didn't talk about it. But I know the fan base was really pushing for a potential J.C. Treader signing, and he retired last week. And I think the thing that stands out the most to me is that he said he was interested in playing for the Vikings because he obviously grew up rooting for them. But it was the Vikings who had no interest. It wasn't. I forget the exact verbiage that was put out there, but essentially,
Kwesi didn't return our call.
Yeah, didn't return our call. Thank you. So again, I think this coaching staff believes in Garrett Bradbury for better or worse. And
you got to remember, Kwesi was in Cleveland and knew exactly the status of J.C. Treader.
Yeah, and we have no idea how his knees are doing from a health perspective, if he could even hold up. And so, to your point, Dave, yes, exactly. Kwesi might have known,
or if he was a union agitator in the locker room, because he is the union president. So, and they may not have wanted that end of him being in the locker room, even if he was healthy, because of the whole vibe that they've generated this offseason. The whole collaboration stuff. They all want that one team thing. You hear Kevin O'Connell yelling at the fans to not take videos and stuff, and especially the press, and threatening those guys. It's all part of that. And Kwesi may have said no just because of that.
Maybe we won't know. But the bottom line is, Garrett Bradbury is your week 1 starting center, and that's about enough of center talk for me. So, Michael, we answered your question.
Well, I like that they brought Josh Sokol back onto the practice squad. I'd like to see him develop more.
Well, why not?
Yeah. So
you know what I think we should do.
Go for
we
it.
should hire listener Dan Henneman just for the draft to say, hey, go get that center, because he's been right about like 4 different guys over the last 3 years, including Creed Humphrey and including I think he had said Eric McCoy was a good dude. Like, he's been right over the last few years. So I'm going to trust his judgment here.
Dan, I have a homework assignment for you by next week's show. If you can quickly, and if you don't have enough time, that's fine. We can push out the deadline. It's not urgent. But if you could muster up some names for us in this upcoming draft class that the Vikings and Vikings fans should keep an eye on, since you, I guess, now are the center guru. We'll see if it comes to fruition. Back to roster cuts quick. back to roster cuts quick, and then we'll switch to our last topic point here. But any other surprises, any takeaways, Ryan, from the roster cuts yesterday?
Not like huge surprises. Like you said, it was relatively cut and dry. I mean, who we thought was going to be on here. Now, some surprises, I guess, that made the roster, I would say, is, and I don't know how to say his last name, Luigi
Villain.
He just must have impressed enough during the process, during the preseason games to forge his spot. I mean, he had guys like Janarius Robinson to beat out, who, again, was loaded with potential. I don't know if that's ever going to be realized, but we brought him back for practice squad. And McLeod and some other guys that were in there. And he beat out all these guys that maybe had a little bit more of a step on him in the process. And I found an interesting quote the other day. Kwesi Pay had basically said, hey, you got a dog up there. You're lucky to have him. You're going to love what you see. And he came in here and earned a roster spot. So I think that was kind of a surprise, just because it was a little, I guess, off radar. Like, if you would have pulled 100 Vikings fans, maybe one, being his mom, would have had him on the final 53. Like, nobody was going to put him on there. So that was cool to see. Yeah, again, like Vidarian Lowe, I was kind of surprised just because we already had enough offensive linemen. So this is where I was talking about the ISM, or keeping like Tristan Jackson on the team, a 6th receiver in general. I do find it interesting around that aspect as well. But outside of that, it's pretty cut and dry, in my opinion.
Yeah. Dave, any takeaways from you?
Not that we haven't already covered. Brian just talked about only keeping 3 tight ends. We did put Nick Muse on the practice squad. Davidson did not make the practice squad that I saw.
Nope, he didn't.
But I'm not worried. If Irv Smith goes down, they're just going to shift the focus of the offense to the 3 wideouts, which is probably going to be a lot of the focus anyways. It's nice having Irv in there, because Johnny Munt and Ben Ellison, even though they can catch the football, they're primarily blocking guys, which is fine. You need those too. So I'm not worried about tight ends like others. We're not running that same offense that we did under the multiple iterations under Zimmer. So it's not as big a deal to me now. If we were, yeah, we'd like another pass catcher, but it's no biggie.
I do have a growing concern, and this is future, like, off-season fodder that we can talk about, but just the state of the tight end position for the Vikings. I think Irv is on his last year of his deal. And then you have nothing. And we don't even know if Irv is legit. You know what I mean? Like, got spam there, Dave.
Yes.
We don't even know if Irv Smith is legit. Like, he was hyped up last year, got injured. Really,
in the limited of reps, he's played well, but yeah, you're right. We just don't know what we have full-time role.
And so, I mean, that could I mean, it's up to Irv Smith this year, right? I mean, he could ball out, earn himself a really good contract, and unfortunately, I feel like that really big contract, if he does ball out, probably won't be with us because we have Justin Jefferson we have to sign this offseason, and that is going to take up a lot of money.
Yeah,
The
but
last,
like also tight end contracts aren't like crazy, right? And the fact that we can leverage the fact that he has been injured 2 of the 3 years he's been here so far, as like as a sticking point for not paying him too much.
what exactly?
Um, and we do have quite a bit of cap space next year. I thought I saw like we just have a ton.
No,
Because
I don't think we do.
is that I thought I read that and then I
think
looked
we
at it.
can
I'm like,
clear
gosh,
it. We could easily
we can clear a lot. Yeah, because I was like, gosh, I took a look at that. I'm like, well, no, we're still paying a lot for a bunch of guys, but
Yeah,
I think they're
because
set up
like Dalvin
half.
Cook goes up, we're going to be paying Justin Jefferson. It gets real expensive real fast.
Okay, maybe that guy was wrong that I read about, or he's assuming we move a lot of guys. What I do find interesting, quick before we move too far along in some of these other topics, is and I sent a tweet out about this yesterday. I think it was somebody had mentioned like, they were kind of surprised that we're like gutting this 2021 draft class. I'm like,
That
we
was
got to
my
take
next
a look.
topic, so let's go.
Writing on the wall. Oh, was that the next topic? My bad. I didn't look at the show notes enough, I guess.
You're good, man. You're good.
Writing on the wall is what I put out there. Like the writing was on the wall for all those guys. Like you take a look at the positions that we drafted this year and what we're doing, what we did to address that, right? So, for example, outside of quarterback, of course, right? And then I'm not going to count first round pick, who was obviously a home run here, but Chaz Surratt, we drafted Asamoah to replace him because we knew he was nothing, right? Wyatt Davis, we drafted Ed Ingram because we just assumed that Wyatt Davis wasn't the guy, right? Thanks, Aaron, for joining. Appreciate you.
We got rain coming, Aaron.
Who else did I mention? There was like one other guy that I mentioned. I'm like, and we had to replace all of these. Like the writing was on the wall for a lot of these different positions because we just didn't have faith in what they were bringing to the table here. So I think that it really makes a lot of sense as to who was cut and who wasn't. And I think it also is future state. Like maybe we can move on from an Eric Kendricks now if Asamoah can continue to develop, right? Maybe we can move on from a Harrison Smith now that if Lewis Cine can develop. Obviously, Patrick Peterson's only a 1-year deal. Hopefully, Booth and why am I drawing a blank? But Dantzler. I want to say Chancellor. I don't know why. So Cam Dantzler. Maybe those two can step up and be the future, and we can get rid of another heavier-ish contract, right? Like these guys they drafted strategically to potentially offload some of these massive contracts we're on. Like Ty Chandler, can he be Ty Chandler and Kenny? Can they carry the load and we can dump off of Dalvin Cook? Like all these guys that we're bringing in, they might be able to future state get us moving towards the getting us moving towards the future so we can afford the Justin Jeffersons and maybe the Irv Smiths and whatnot.
That is like I'm gonna try and hit my sound button here, and I don't know if I have the right one, so bear with me. Like honestly though, Ryan, that's a really good take. And I guess shame on me. And I don't know, maybe other people saw it and I was just oblivious. But the writing was definitely on the wall with these draft picks. I think we get so enamored with just like draft picks that we don't necessarily think about maybe the future implications. We think about the right now. But when you list it out how you did, you talk about Harrison Smith. Okay, well, bye Harrison, and it sucks, and we don't want to say goodbye to Harrison Smith because he is Minnesota Vikings defense, right? He's going in the Ring of Honor someday. Eric Kendricks, maybe not Ring of Honor, but still a very special player for the Minnesota Vikings for the past handful of years. But when you lay it out like that, it's very easy now for the Vikings and Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell to be like, Lewis Cine at $5.5 million and just a little bit less than what Harrison's doing on the field. versus Harrison Smith, who's an aging vet at 18 million. I don't know his exact cap number. Same goes for Kendricks, but then I really liked your last point there of Kene Wangu and Ty Chandler potentially supplementing a Dalvin Cook at some time in the future, which I don't think is very far fetched because Kevin O'Connell has really come from places that emphasized like
Committees.
a couple different, a running back by committee. And so, not that Dalvin Cook's not a special guy, but
And
sometimes
this isn't us saying that they're even on the same
right,
like they're not even they're not even in a tier below Dalvin. Like they're 2-3 tiers below him. But when you look at the running back position in this offense, maybe it's not as important anymore. And
yeah,
not to say Dalvin isn't not generational probably, but like he's not like one of the best running backs in the league. But when you're paying a running back as much as we would have to pay him, and understanding where this offense is going and what we need out of these positions, maybe because again, we're going to have offensive linemen to have to pay for soon. Like Ezra Cleveland's coming up, So like it's got to give somewhere. And again, what we saw from some of these running backs and what, you can go recycle running backs every 4 years or 3 years in the draft, and you're going to get a lot of quality talent in there. I mean, it's kind of funny when you watch like the Niners. They have invested a lot in the running back position, and all those guys suck. Trey Sermon, Tevin Coleman, there's a whole list of guys, but all their really top performers are undrafted, 6th-round pick, undrafted. It's like maybe you don't need to throw at all these resources at that position.
Yeah. So, do you? This can be it feeds into the same thing. Obviously, we're praising so far, right? We haven't really seen them on the field quite yet, but the 2022 class. But we've talked about it this show, how 7 of the 11 draft picks from the 21 class are gone, and I just want to know your thoughts on that, because obviously last year went south. We needed those draft picks in a bad way to step up and do something, and they whiffed completely. Obviously, Darrisaw looks to be the saving grace of that draft class, but the rest of them just
and who do
appear
we thank for that? Who do we thank for Darrisaw?
well, you could say the Raiders.
We thank Mike Mayock. We thank
Yeah,
Mike Mayock, absolutely, because
who's
they go and
trying to
take
cut
Leatherwood. Yeah, they go take Leatherwood, I think a player or two ahead of him,
yeah,
and they cut him the next year once that regime's out of there. Oh boy, we lucked out, just like we lucked out with the Reagor and Jefferson thing. We lucked out with the Darrisaw not getting taken ahead of Leatherwood. Otherwise, because I think from what I heard, which I don't know if it's accurate or not, Tevin Jenkins was going to be our guy if Darrisaw was out, and I don't think he's overly impressing for the Bears right now. So
they had
I'm
him on the
glad
trade block.
they did. Yeah. So like I'm definitely glad we got that position. But yeah, outside of that, it was a disaster. Um, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because again, like Dan had said, and like I said, we had so much draft capital in the mid rounds. Why didn't you trade up for a center when you knew Bradbury wasn't good? Creed Humphrey was there 3 picks earlier. And then obviously we take Mond. If the Texans happen to be one player ahead of us, they were going to take Mond, and we would be with Davis Mills, and then we would be the ones laughing about this, right? The saving grace here is Darrisaw. Saving grace is Cam Bynum. I'll give kudos to Rick for generating a positive process, right? You trade back, which was the right move. You got 2 third-round picks out of it, and you still got your guy. That's good process. Obviously, the players themselves didn't work out. The back-end players, but it's very frustrating. You had a lot of capital that you just threw away, and you take a look at some of the players that were picked all around that area, and you're like, well, that guy kind of hit. That guy's a contributor at least. He's not cut. All the way down, it's frustrating. But you're going to have those years. For every year that happens, you have the 2015 season, right, draft that hit multiple times, right? So, and hopefully this draft is that, because Like you said earlier in the show, Scene looks good, Booth looks good, Ingram looks good, Asamoah looks good, Evans looks good.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else is overly impressing, but like that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's something you can hang your hat on and be happy about going into to the NFL season here. Any
I'm not
final
going to get
take?
Patrick Jones love until he earns the love. He only had a couple of plays last year that weren't impressive. He's looked a lot better this year, but he didn't really perform well last year, so we don't have a lot of information to move off of on him. But Bynum did play well in the limited reps, and obviously Darius House looked good. I have a lot of faith in Patrick Jones. He looked good in the preseason, he looked good in the offseason, but I'm not going to give him all the praise yet until he earns it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Any final takeaways for this episode? Otherwise, we can put a wrap on it.
Not really. I saw Bryce and Kent had asked if Adam Thielen will be on the team next year. I think it's going to be mighty hard for him not to be on the team, just given the way his contract's structured. He's going to get a lot of money, unfortunately. But if we move off, we owe a ton of money. So a ton of dead cap. So it'll be pretty frustrating to be able to eat that. And again, he's still performing. He's healthier than he's ever been, apparently. And hopefully he can transition into maybe a wide receiver 3 at that point, a very expensive wide receiver 3, with KJ hopefully continuing to ascend, and hopefully we can maybe move on the year after if needed. So, or he'll restructure. We'll see.
I got a few show notes, and then I'll toss it over here to Dave to give a preview for what's next. But like I mentioned earlier, this show is sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing. It's fall here in Minnesota almost, and the patio season is still ready to be in use. So head on over to Lake Monster in St. Paul, Minnesota. Try all these beers they have. I had the Purple Rain tonight. It's almost gone. Actually, I think I still got some in the can, so I'll make sure to finish that up. I also had one of my favorites there last week, the Depth Charge IPA. I don't think it's on this list here that Dave has up on the screen, but you can ask for it.
I updated it today. Depth Charge came off and Last Fathom went on.
You got to be kidding me. I'm going to have a conversation with those guys over there. Also, if you're here still, or if you're still listening to the podcast, please go over, subscribe to our Climb in the Pocket YouTube channel. We will be here every single Wednesday night throughout the season and into the off season at 8 p.m. Central, along with the other live shows that we have throughout the week. Some fun news for next week, the first week of the regular season. This crew will be live from Lake Monster in St. Paul. So if you are in the local Twin Cities area and you want to come out and check out the live show, please do. We will go live at our same time. There will be beer to be had, maybe a giveaway or two if people are there.
Some smack talking of Packers fans.
Bring on the Packer fans. Let's go. After next week's show, it's full optimism for Matt, right? I mean, not that I haven't been at this point, but we'll bring back some of the segments we had last year, the over-unders and whatnot. I'll get all that stuff organized, but it's bound to be a fun show. So make sure you come back next week for that. Otherwise, I got nothing else for you, Dave. I'll let you take it.
What we have rest of the week is Saturday with Darren and I as your two old bloggers. We're going to break down what happened this week. We'll probably go quicker through it. I do intend to do a dive into Ross Blacklock versus Bullard and what we can expect, and maybe we can look into how Ed Donatell's going to use those guys. So we'll find out. Should be fun.
Yeah, it's a great show. If you haven't checked out Saturday's show, you definitely should.
Lake Monster.
What do we say, guys?
Skol Vikings.
Skol Vikings.
Skol Vikings. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.